For instance, with eating, the number one killer in the world, even 500 years ago, same thing, I'm not rich enough, I'm not interesting, I'm not qualified, I'm not good enough. The human mind is hardwired to go back to what's familiar. And he always said the job of every school is to raise a child's self-esteem. That's it, that's the job. They only love me because I get great grades. And it was so sad that each of them felt. That's one of the exam questions when you're training to be a psychiatrist. What are the most important words? I'm not perfect, I'm flawed. I'm flawed, and so are you, and let's have a flawed relationship.
Causing physical symptoms.
Well, because the stomach is the seat of all emotions.
Right.
The baby will say, I've got a tummy ache. If you don't fix your wounds, you bleed on the people that never cut you.
Yeah. Welcome, Marissa, to the Warrior Academy podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Such a pleasure to have you here. The last time I saw you was actually on a boat with a mutual friend of ours.
Wasn't that fun?
So that was fun, yeah. So it's I'm glad that we managed to finally have this conversation. For anyone who doesn't know you, I'm sure most people watching this will be aware of your amazing work around the world, but for anyone who doesn't, could you give us a little intro into what it is you do?
Well, I created my own brand of therapy called RTT, which means Rapid Transformational Therapy. I just wanted to create something that was fast. When people come to you in a lot of pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, they really want to get better fast. And I found therapy, it was really about getting better slowly. So I created something that was very powerful, but very rapid. And it's been massively successful.
Fantastic. So tell me, how did you get started in all this? What's the driving force behind what you do?
Being a therapist or creating RTT?
Being a therapist initially.
Being a therapist is an amazing job because you get to make a difference. But also for a woman especially, it's an amazing job because it's a very kind job. You can work your own hours. You can do 5 hours a day or indeed 3, or you can work whenever you want to. And so as a parent, I found it was just such a gift because I could work entirely around my daughter going to school. Didn't have to work weekends or evenings or in the holidays. So I loved that. But the biggest thing, of course, is when you have a career where you can make a difference. As a therapist, you tend to tick all the boxes. A great career will give you certainty, diversity, connection, significance, meaning and purpose, but also you get to grow, transform, and make a difference for other people, but also yourself. And it's very hard to find one job that does all of those 9 things all the time. So people say to me, you give so much, but I really don't because I get so much back. So I just find it, I'll never retire. I love it.
It does sound incredibly fulfilling.
It's so fulfilling, yeah. It's interesting. It's fulfilling, it's interesting, every day is different.
And I imagine when you're making changes to someone's life, especially if, with the rapid transformations you're now specializing in, if you can make those changes faster, then you're able to make a bigger impact, right?
We live in such a fast world and nobody wants to do anything that's slow. Maybe in the 60s when therapy really came into its own, people would have time to drive into town, do an hour's therapy, do an hour's drive home because the world was so much slower. But now it's faster. People just don't want that. And also people love therapy. I work with a lot of troubled teenagers and they never want to go to see a therapist in their office because it's like, I'm coming here to talk about what's wrong with me. But going onto their screen in their bedroom and working with them is very different. They feel comfortable there. And so I think the whole idea of it, surely you can't do therapy on screen. But that's just because when therapy was invented, nobody had a screen. So you have to adapt to what people like.
It's an old way, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting as well. I think you can sit with your own problems for a long time and they become very confusing. I recently had a chat with 5 parents I'm working with on developing their child's confidence, more so their understanding of confidence, which they can then use to mentor their children. And for them, they're going through this big complex thing. Their child's losing their confidence, or they're kind of shrinking in terms of their personality, their self-esteem seems low, and they don't want to do the things they used to do. For me, having done it for so many years, it's so simple. It's just like, I can see the problems, I can see the patterns emerging. And so because of that, I'm able to fix things quite quickly. And I imagine it's the same for you when you're working with people on the kind of rapid transformations you do.
Yeah, I think the idea, people have this belief and it's so incorrect. The mind is very complicated and very complex and takes a whole lifetime to understand and then another lifetime to apply, which couldn't work because most of us don't have 2 lifetimes. And so you have to always question that. The mind isn't complicated at all. Everything it's doing is to protect you, and to keep you alive on the planet. You know, we're very modern people. We have very primitive wiring that says that isn't safe, that's dangerous, that could hurt me. And so when you can understand what runs you, for instance, you know, with eating, the number one killer in the world, even 500 years ago, wasn't war or disease, it was hunger. So to this day, we're still wired to be scared of hunger. We can't be rational with it. Oh my God, I'm so hungry, I'll eat anything. And the same thing with rejection. You know, that's why it's so hard for kids, because the minute we're born, we're hardwired and super coded to find connection and avoid rejection. As a child, that's important, but all our life, we're still looking to, can I connect with you and avoid rejection? But the world we live in now has so much rejection in it, and a lot of people, teenagers especially, are now finding more rejection and more disconnection. So we have to understand our wiring. We're not wired to live alone and to be on screens all the time and to never see anyone. We're wired really to live as a tribe.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's interesting what you're saying about rejection being more obvious these days, you know, and certainly more prevalent. I think about that social media.
Yeah.
And it's like we're constantly seeking validation.
Yeah, and you can go on site and ask people to rate you. What do you rate me? And they rate you, oh, 4. Or, I mean, it's really a horrible thing. And then, of course, we get this overexposure every day to fake images of perfection. We think, oh, everyone else looks like that and has a great life, and it's just me. And so the media, for all it can connect you, can speak to your grandmother on Skype, and that's all very nice. You can call everyone. It also does a lot of disconnecting because it exposes you to stuff that isn't real, but you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. The false expectation of someone else's reality.
Yeah.
And how we should be living up to that standard or whatever it is. It's interesting how you know, how can we resolve that? I guess it's just awareness initially. And then there's so many practical things we can do to, you know, to be aware of the community our children are part of online. And there's all sorts of things we can do. Then as parents ourselves, we're guilty of it, right? It's one of those things. You can have the best intentions, but at the end of the day.
And then, so, you know, it's funny, I was walking on the street the other day. I looked at 4 different mothers on there walking on, and each of them were on their phone and pushing the pram. And I thought that's so interesting, isn't it? That they're not one of them is engaging with their child. Yeah. So the parents are also so disconnected. So we have disconnected kids being raised by disconnected parents.
What's the impact of that 10 years down the line?
Well, yeah, that is a challenge. When you imagine 10 years' time where you go to a store, there'll be no one serving you, just a machine. You go to the bank, there'll be no one serving. You get in an Uber, they might even have a driver. And then so many kids are being homeschooled on computers. So, yeah, I think it's going to make a lot of people ill.
They say one of the biggest contributors to longevity in life is socialization.
Yeah.
It's being around. You know the blue zones.
Yeah, no, what about
the mountains in Japan or you know Sardinia or whatever it is, where they cycle to and from each other's house and they have all these community events.
Yeah.
It's just, you have how many conversations you have throughout the day.
Yeah.
And of course, on one hand, technology reduces those conversations in person. But on the other hand, I wonder if it increases conversations, gives us more access to speak to more people and have more conversations.
But on the screen and on the phone is never the same as face-to-face. You know, it's like saying, I'm reading my kid a story. One of my clients, I read my kid a story every night through Zoom, but it's not the same. You know, having your dad on a screen or your mum on a screen to read you a story is not, it's like saying I'm going on a date on a screen. And we saw what happened in lockdown. We all had computers. We all could call everybody and Zoom into them, but that's not the same as face-to-face. It's not the same. It's not real, is it? You can't touch someone. I mean, you can speak to them. It's lovely. I mean, I use Zoom. I use my phone a lot, but that's never going to be the same as seeing someone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's go straight back to the beginning, because I'm really fascinated. When I speak to incredible people, I'm always fascinated about their childhood, and you know, because we work with so many kids, you know, it's like, what is it that led you down this path in life? And tell me a bit about your childhood. Where did you grew up in London or
Cambridge?
Cambridge, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
very nice.
And tell me about life in Cambridge when you were growing up.
So my life in Cambridge was interesting because it looked lovely. I literally had a house with a white picket fence in the country. My father was a head teacher. I actually went to his school, probably not a great idea. And it all looked lovely, but inside it was a bit crazy. But did me a lot of good because I realized how quickly you can not feel good enough. You know, I went to my dad's school. I felt like a freak, of course. I mean, How can you go to your dad's school and have him be your head teacher and not feel different? I mean, I had friends. It certainly wasn't a tragic life compared to most people. I had an easy ride. But I really recognized very quickly how bad it is to feel different. The only rich kid in a poor school, a poor kid in a rich school, the kid that's got glasses or red hair, the first kid to develop the last kid. It's really horrible when you feel different because you feel disconnected. But that really helped me later on when I founded the I'm Enough movement, because having come from that background and then become a therapist, I saw so quickly how almost all my clients had the same thing. I'm not enough. It could be I'm not good enough, smart enough, interesting enough, attractive enough. As adults, it's very much the same thing. I'm not rich enough. I'm not interesting. I'm not qualified. I'm not good enough. And I realized that, it doesn't matter what you have or what you've achieved. Many people carry that with them their entire life. And it really is the common denominator of most people's issues. I'm not enough. But the good news is if it's the common thread, then it's actually not hard to change that, to go back and say, look, I know you're turning up with alcoholism or overeating or overspending or whatever it is you're doing, but really the problem is you just don't think you're enough, and that's why you're doing that. It's when you treat what lies beneath, which is on the stories I'm not enough. It makes such a difference. And of course now I'm putting it into schools, which is a wonderful thing, because so many kids don't start with that. No babies will think, I'm not good enough. They think they are.
They pick it up from somewhere.
They pick it up so fast. Comparisons. I notice out here how many children have an issue because they're always moving or their friends are leaving. And someone on recently said, I don't feel safe because every time I make a friend, they leave. And
such a transient environment.
Yeah, and I worked with someone years ago, rather like you, an army child, who said, I just learned not to make friends because I couldn't bear to say goodbye anymore. It became so hard that I just stopped even connecting.
Moving around all the time.
Yeah, that disconnecting, connecting and disconnecting.
I suppose in some ways it builds resilience in kids. And when I was speaking to Brett, who's the headmaster of Arbor, about this on this podcast, we talked about that. And one of the things he said is the kids do get used to it because they have to, right? Because they build up the resilience to it. But then again, they take all that energy of.
Yeah.
I'm a bit cautious about letting myself into new friendship groups.
But we play the only part we've ever known, and then we make that part our own. And if the part you learn is you come into our life for a year, and then you go, and then I meet someone else, and then they go, then you'll find as an adult relationships that never work because you have a belief, oh, this is good, but it won't last. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what if you have a belief that people come into your life, but they don't stick around, you'll go out into the world, and of course, we make our beliefs, and then our beliefs turn around and make us, and then we have something called confirmation bias, which means what I expect to happen, I'm looking for it, and I'm actually making it happen. And so once you have that belief that no one stays, that's why so many people have transient relationships. They want love, and they go, I found this person, it ended after a year, then I found that one, but I can never have a long relationship. And that's because of that, I don't know if you know about the continuum concept, this book about how tribes raise children, and they call it the in arms phase. And they say, if you hold a baby until it wants to be put down, until it wants to be put down, it will be very secure. But if you put the baby in the pram or the stroller or go to work, they never learn that. And so they're always looking for love with someone and getting deep, connected, and then it doesn't work, and then they're looking for someone else. So the way we raise our children is very linked to the kind of love they find when they grow up.
And history just repeats itself based on what we look for in the world.
Yeah.
What we look for, we see.
Yeah, that confirmation.
It's a bit like if I told you to look for a specific type of car, you'd probably suddenly see all of them everywhere.
Of course.
And, it's amazing how the mind fixates whatever would justify that idea, right? So if you think something's going to exist, it will actually exist based on your...
And then, of course, one of the things about the mind that's so fascinating is that it only likes what it already knows. The human mind is hardwired to go back to what's familiar while avoiding what's unfamiliar, to go with what it knows. And you see that with 2-year-olds. If I don't want that yogurt, it's yellow, I only like pink yogurt, right? They want the same bedtime story, the same breakfast cereal, in the same cup, in the same bowl. Because it wasn't that long ago that familiar made you safe. If you stayed in your tribe, you didn't wander off, you ate the same stuff, you didn't pick, weird berries that you didn't recognize, because familiar kept you alive. And all these years later, we're still hardwired to return to what we know and avoid what we don't know. So if you've never had praise and compliments, sounds so bizarre that if you praise someone who's grown up with criticism, they'll reject and go, oh no, that's not true. So if you said to someone, hey, I love that, but the one was terrible. I love that movie you wrote, it was awful. And then they added some criticism. So one of the things to understand with kids is if they're not used to praise, they start to reject it. And then you have something called attachment disorder, which is if children aren't held and loved, when you pick them up, they don't like it. It's like saying, I'm going to pick up a feral cat and stroke it. They do not like that. My cats love to be picked up. They're like babies, and dogs too. But you know, if love is unfamiliar, we'll even reject that. And money too. You know, 70% of lottery winners are bankrupt in 3 years. Sounds so bizarre. What, you'd reject wealth? Oh yes, you'd reject love? Absolutely. We reject anything that isn't familiar because the mind likes what it knows. But the good news is you can make anything you like familiar.
Yeah.
And then if you make it familiar enough, the mind will, like working out, of course, then the mind will start to like it.
So often the best success in life comes over a long period of time. Well, you know, often I think short-lived success or very, very fast success, we tend to self-sabotage in a lot of ways, right? You know, you go on that quick diet while you end up going back to solidify the habits, or you win the lottery, like you said, or you find success in business very, very quickly. You do 10 years worth of success in 1 year or whatever, and suddenly you're not ready for it.
So when you're making something familiar, say you're going to the gym and doing the plank, or taking sugar out of your tea, or meditating when you wake up, or anything you're doing, as you do, you have to keep saying, I'm making this familiar, I'm making this familiar, I'm making this familiar. And when you repeat that over and over again, it actually really works. It actually changes your entire life.
I'm making this familiar.
Yeah, so what talking about, you know, what I did as a child, I had a father who was a head teacher, and he was a wonderful man, and he was a very revolutionary approach to raising kids, because he was paid to be interested in other people's children. And at home, it wasn't the same, and also he didn't get the same respect from us that he got when he walked into a class that kissed it up and went, hello, sir. We didn't do that. And so I had that thing where my father didn't seem to be that interested in us. I'm sure he was, but it didn't seem to be that. And so, of course, I had to, as I grew up, when I found men just like my dad, you know, they had 100 things going on. And I remember thinking, oh, you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm always working to make my dad notice me because he was busy. And so I decided to say, I'm going to make a different kind of person familiar. I didn't have to say it very long. I had to recognize, it's like everything. Find the pattern, understand the pattern, change the pattern. So here's my pattern. What's so familiar is having a man in my life that's preoccupied with anything except for me. And now I found the pattern, I've got to change that pattern, understand how I got it, and then change it, which was saying I'm going to make something different familiar.
Yeah.
And so many people have really unhappy relationships or really unhappy careers simply because they're returning something that's so familiar, but they don't even recognize what it is.
Yeah, it's true. It's certainly a powerful concept. Once you understand the things that are causing me to act in a certain way, and I think habits are just such a fundamental aspect of that, you know, and that's familiarity, right? It's the things that you revert back to, even in times of change.
Yeah.
Go back to your habits. And one of the things I do is I look at it like habit stacking. So I won't try to do lots of things at once. I'll choose one thing, cement up for several months, and then add something else on. And you know, I think if you approach it like a lot of people do, you know, New Year's resolutions, all this sort of stuff, and they try and make a big change, lots of things at once.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And it's too much in one go.
Yeah.
Whereas you extend the journey.
Yeah.
And you really approach things as, I'm going to try and solidify this one thing as a habit. And one of the ways I look at that is don't make the changes that you want to make short term. Select the things that you say, right, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, like I mentioned to you earlier, walking, you know, I walk for 1 or 2 hours every morning. Super early, try and get the walk done before the sun rises. And when I first started doing that, it felt weird, right? Getting up before everyone else and getting outside in the dark. And then it's one of those things where I was like, well, this is something that if I can do this for the rest of my life, even if it's just a 5-minute walk, it's going to have such a net positive impact on my life, you know, creatively when you're walking, or in terms of being present and removing tension in your mind when you're walking, or even just moving your body. If I could do this up into my old age and that's just a cemented habit, it's going to be so positive. And so I gradually increased the walk from 10 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And so now it's just such a fundamental part of my day. It feels weird now if I don't do it.
Yeah, of course, because you work.
Yeah. And so I think there's something to be said about looking for changes that you could, or habits that you could do for the rest of your life.
And it doesn't take the brain very long to, let go of an old habit and put in a new one. That's why hypnosis is so great, because any therapy you do, you want something that changes your neural connections. And of course, habits do that. But most people, as you say, they go, okay, no sugar, and then after 3 weeks they have them go, I've ruined that, or I'm never drinking again, and then they give that up. So it's much better to say something like, I'll only eat sugar 1 day a week, or I'll only drink 2 days a week, or I'll stop after 3 drinks maximum. So when you make something so restrictive and so difficult, you never stick to it, and then you feel that tremendous disappointment. We see that a lot with eating. People say, no, I'm not eating any junk food, I'm not eating any sugar. Then they go to someone's house and they order pizza and they go, oh, well, there's nothing else to eat now. And plus, I seem really boring not enjoying the pizza, so I just give in. And of course, you have two things going on. You have the habit, you also have what's familiar, because we love stuff that's familiar. So my generation would always think of cakes and chocolates. My daughter, for her, it's sushi. When she was a little kid, we had sushi a lot. And that she wouldn't dream of saying, well, I want a chocolate cake or ice cream. For her, it's sushi and Joe and the Juice. So it's quite good that you can really wire. You want to always, as a parent, wire in better habits. So one of the good things is never saying, oh, well, this is a treat, we're having ice cream today, or, oh, let's be naughty and have chocolate. You should say, yeah, today after we've got some mango, and this time it's hummus, and next time it's a cookie, but don't keep saying this is a treat, this is naughty, should we do something? Because you're wiring the brain to think, oh, that makes everything better. Yeah. And of course, then as soon as you're feeling sad, the brain goes, you need cookies and ice cream.
Unhealthy as a reward.
Yeah, because you told the brain, it's that feedback. You tell your mind something, it starts to tell you back. Your words shape your entire reality.
Yeah, it's so true. Really, really true. You mentioned hypnosis. I'd love to talk about that. What? How did you get into that?
How did I get
How did you get into that? Yeah, what was your first experience of hypnosis? 'Cause a lot of people who have no idea about therapy or hypnosis would be, quite curious. Does hypnosis work? What actually is it?
Yeah. Somebody hypnotized me a long time ago, and I was like 20, I think, because I used to eat a lot of sugar, and I found it very hard not to eat it. And he took me back to this thing with my grandmother, who was the one person who loved me and my parents loved me, but my grandmother made me feel loved. But she also made me feel loved. She was difficult to do food and cooking and cakes, and she was very like Pavlov's dog. You walked into her house, she got the cake tin out. It was that symbiotic thing. And I realized, of course, that she loved me so much, but she also gave me an eating disorder, because she came from, she wasn't even raised with her family. She was raised in a very poor place, so her food was everything. And so that was my first experience of hypnosis, going, oh, I can change everything. And then I was so amazed at the power of that one session, how it changed everything for me, that I decided to learn hypnosis. I was teaching aerobics for Jane Fonda at the time in California. And that was amazing, because I would teach aerobics to these really amazing women and men that had kind of quite nice lives, but they were all obsessed with food. And they would try and get over it with aerobics. They go, yesterday I ate pizza, so I've got to work out, or I've got the flu, and look how many calories are in this cough medicine. And I'm thinking, this is a sort of crazy, isn't it? So I went to hypnosis school with this amazing guy called Gil Boyne. And I always planned that I was just going to work with eating disorders. In LA, there's so many of them. And this was in the late 80s. And even then, most of the women coming to Jane Fonda's workout studio had either anorexia, bulimia, body dysmorphia, orthorexia, you want to eat everything that's clean. And now it's, of course, multiplied. And so then I trained in hypnosis, and I did just that. I began to work with people with eating disorders. And a lot of anorexics, a lot of bulimics, which again seems very complex, but it really isn't. And then it was so successful, people would ring up and say, but I have a fear of merging on a motorway and I just wanted to see you. So I started to not specialize and found that even more interesting. And I did that for years and
So you went
years.
abroad for a period of time.
Yeah, people would ring up saying, no, I can't get pregnant. And that was something I found so rewarding because, here's the word unexplained infertility. That's an interesting word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unexplained, it means your ovaries are fine. You've got actually some great grade A eggs in there. Your womb lining's great. Husband's sperm is great. We can't explain it. And of course, it goes back to, what does the mind think being pregnant is? And for many people, it's like terrifying. And so
Links back to their relationship with their parents, maybe. Or
there's lots of reasons people don't get pregnant. The big one is fear of birth, fear of change. We're hardwired to fear change because the same old kept us safe.
We spoke briefly about Dr. DiMartini, and I remember him walking through in the big crowd, a lady who had experienced exactly that, unexplained infertility. It was amazing to watch this conversation go on. It was just, I think everyone was just kind of on the edge of their seat.
Yes, so amazing.
And there were a lot of things. She was very against it. There was a lot of friction there.
Well, yeah, and then there's secondary infertility, which means you got pregnant easily and you just can't get pregnant again. And why is that? Well, of course, it's because when you've just given birth, you go, I'll never go through that again.
Right.
Or, you say, I couldn't imagine having two. Or you can't imagine, I couldn't go through all the sleepless nights. It's so stressful. But you're telling your brain, I don't want to go through that again.
So the body responds.
Well, your mind is a genie. Your wish is its command. So I did a lot of different things, apart from weight, but it was still amazing. And then I began to work on quite a few television programs. And then I thought, I should really write a book because I've got this great audience. And that led me from the therapy to the TV shows to the writing of the books, led me to teaching, speaking actually, and then eventually teaching my own method. So it's kind of interesting. You think, I'm going over there, but the mind goes, no, actually you're going over there and over there, but that you will actually go back over there. So it's been an amazing adventure, and I've loved every minute.
Which TV shows?
Oh, I worked on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out, Big Brother, Super Size, Super Skinny, Buster Gut.
Show business.
A lot of weight. Well, it wasn't really show. I mean, I was the therapist on the show, so that's very different. When you're the therapist on a show, you're working with people who come along to lose weight, but again, they have all these. They say things like, after the weigh-in, I'm going to go out for pizza, I'm going to have ice cream. So they didn't quite get it that you need to change.
So with I'm a Celebrity or Big Brother, how would that work? You would come in to speak to the guests?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Or would you? Because I think on Big Brother they used to do this kind of review afterwards.
Yeah.
What's going on? Right?
Yeah.
Analyze the behaviour.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff as well.
No, well, I was really behind the scenes looking at something else, which is often you think, this person is so fragile, they cannot possibly make it. But actually they often work, or this person looks great, but actually no, they've got a lot of issues. It was really profiling who can cope with this kind of exposure, because it can be, for everyone who loves it, it can be quite damaging to be shut away in a house or in an island, and you need to know, of course, that you're not going to affect someone.
And then, of course, there's the reality of life afterwards, right? You go into that building, you're not going to come out the same life, right?
And that's also interesting because you may go say, I went on to this show and it changed my life, and I came home, but my partner didn't like it. That happens a lot with people who lose a lot of weight. Sometimes they have partners, male or female, who really don't like it and go, you're so boring now, or you've changed.
Yeah.
Or their friends who they used to collude in, let's all go out and eat cake, and that's a big thing. One of my clients said, it's so weird, I lost so much weight from working with you, but then I realized how my life was all about, we'll go shopping and we'll stop and have cake.
Yeah.
Or we'll go to the cinema and we'll have ice cream, or we'll go out for the day. And she said, and my friends, I just found the most boring person in the world because I don't indulge in that anymore. And then other of my clients who got cancer said all her neighbors would turn up with cake. They'd leave cake on the doorstep. They said, I've made you a lovely cake. I know you're going through something terrible. And she had such a nice, they were all bringing her cake. And it was like going to someone in hospital. What do you take? Boxes of chocolates and bunches of grapes. No one brings in green juices. And then you take for the nurse's station more chocolate. So it's just such a weird thing how, we say things like, sweetie, honey, sugar, cookie. So we even use words. And so the sugar thing is so interesting, how it's so linked to, because the words, if I say empty, full, starved, or nourished, I'm talking about feelings. I feel empty since my cat died, or my husband died, or I'm starved of affection, or I'm so full of love, or I'm nourished by my friends. But they're also words that describe food, full, empty, starved, nourished. And so the brain gets really confused with, if I'm starved of love, a nice pizza will help. If I'm empty because my kids are all left home, I'm just going to make loads of toast and a hot chocolate, and then I'm going to feel full. And so it's the wiring is, the way we're wired is really interesting. And you can't really change people properly until you go back and have a look at where is that wiring? Where does it come from? Where did you get that belief from, and how is it running you? But when you get that information, you can change people completely.
So valuable to do the deep work.
Yeah, the deep.
So valuable to look introspectively at why you do what you do.
Yeah, and it nearly always goes back to someone's childhood, and you think, oh, well, in there then is surely, if we can see what hurts children, then we can help the next generation of parents. Because, I wish I'd known when I was a parent that all my daughter ever wanted was me to be present with her. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's all she wanted. She didn't care about going on trips or stuff. She just wanted me to be present with her, drawing a picture, watching a movie, making something in the kitchen. And it's such a simple thing, but we forget that that's all our kids really want.
We think in our minds that all the things that we think would make their childhood amazing.
Yeah.
I earn more than I could take us on this holiday, or I can live in that house, or I can do this. They just want you, don't they?
To be present. Yeah, and the simple things give them so much pleasure.
And that's the key to creating healthy kids. So just, I look back, and my dad was away a lot with the army, 6 months at a time. So when he was home, he was very present. And I think that was the key to a good relationship with him. He invested that time in when he was home.
But what was it like for the 6 months he wasn't there?
I think it's difficult. It's one of the reasons we mentor a lot of kids who do have, we work with the army in the UK to mentor kids whose parents go away for 6 months. I don't really remember much of that, though, to be honest. I remember the odd thing, say goodbye, this sort of stuff, but I remember my mum with 4 kids at home, everything would break on day one, right? The washing machine would break, the car would break. So it was like that. Yeah. She had to do 2 jobs, basically, while she was working full time, so quite tough. But it was something that presence is just something we remember. And I think that's what your kids will remember.
Yeah, they remember.
It's not the elaborate things that you think they need. It's just tight.
And it's also, we forget that it's just simple things in life that really give us pleasure. So you've got to learn to always focus on, well, this is great, or I'm really living in the moment.
When you look back at your career, obviously transformed thousands of lives, super fulfilling career. What are you most proud of?
I think working with children, there's some amazing success stories. I'm very proud of the fact that I managed to create a technique that 17,000 people around the world that I've trained are doing, and some of them are even better than me, which is not surprising because, I've been doing it my whole life, but they may be in their 30s now and they've got that energy and passion. So I'm really proud of the fact that I've got so many people trained in this great method, because there's nothing better than thinking, well, someone somewhere is having a better life because of a skill that I learned or possessed. But I think my most proud moment is having my 5-day challenge go into schools. Now it's becoming a year-long challenge. Last year we got voted that one of the most revolutionary things in education. And I was sitting in bed and I was looking at this video that a journalist sent me. They'd gone to one of the schools. They were filming all the children who did this 5-day challenge. And they were showing me these little kids going, I've got a cheerleader that lives in me now, and he believes in me. And they were talking about it like it was so real. And I was thinking, wow, so how many children is that then? I was trying to work out. So we've gone to school. Well, we've got this in 1,600 schools. I couldn't even imagine how many kids that was. It was probably one of my proudest moments. Think, wow, all those children are feeling better. Because, of course, you and I know my father was a head teacher. And he always said the job of every school is to raise a child's self-esteem. That's it. That's the job. And, of course, a job of every parent is that too. But no one says that. No one says, hey, it's not about can you speak French, are you good at maths, has your kid got healthy self-esteem, and is this school nurturing that?
Every school's job is to raise a child's self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
But isn't it funny they're not ranked that way?
No, they're not ranked that way at all. Yeah. And people don't go,
search for schools that are going to give our kids the best grades, or we search for schools that have the best Ofsted or HDA report.
I know.
Wouldn't it be funny if we ranked schools on how, even if there was a separate report done, which ranked schools on what change or transformation they're going to make to your child's character or skills, how confident will your child leave when they go through this education?
And yet if you look at the system in Scandinavia, especially in Finland, where children self-select their lessons, they academically do so much better, because when a child feels better emotionally, they do better. I mean, that's what our 5-day challenge is, and all the schools have said that. Wow, these kids are doing so much better emotionally. They're not fighting, bullying almost ceased to exist, but they're also doing better academically because they're happy.
If you improve a child's academics, it doesn't necessarily carry out their soft skills.
Oh, no.
If you improve their soft skills, you'll see their academics increase.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, I was working with a school system in a part of America where they had a really high rate of suicide or self-harming. And these were kids that were very academic, very pushed, but they were really unhappy. And then I had that in Spain a couple of years ago. I was working with 16 children in particular who all had expressed an interest in suicide or self-harm. And that was really sad, because I was working with them in a circle. I said to them, I want you all to just write one thing that you need, because when you're hypnotizing 16 kids at different ages, they were from, I think, 12 to 17, and they all wrote the same thing, which was so sad. They all wrote, just want to belong to somebody or something. Yeah. And they didn't have uncaring parents. I mean, these parents sent them to this particular place I was at. Thought it was a good thing, but they all felt they'd been sent away. Oh, my parents just sent me here because they're busy. Or, they only love me because I get great grades. And it was so sad that each of them felt disconnected.
The highest rates of suicide for children are in countries where the highest amount of pressure is placed on academics.
Yeah.
Japan or Germany.
Sure.
I think they're two of the highest, the countries with the highest rates of suicide for kids. And if you actually look at the educational system there, it's massive focus on academics.
Yes, only
so much pressure.
Yeah,
and it's you spoke about Scandinavia, and I'm half Danish. So, a lot of my family, I grew up with huge Danish influence.
And the forest schools, which is
exactly. We talk about that as well, because learning outside for kids is so valuable. It's one of why I send my kids where they go to school. But I think I used to watch my cousins, and they started school later.
Yeah.
Like homework, they didn't do homework, and then then they would choose their own subjects. It was very different, and but then they would carry on. So they would actually carry on in education for a long time. So it's not necessarily practical. A lot of systems don't have the welfare that they can offer, right?
And of course, Denmark has the latte papa, don't they? Where you get the mother gets a year's maternity leave, and then father gets it. That whole Scandinavian system is all about putting children first. I mean, that whole thing about how they have this thing about how will that affect children. When you go there, you really see it, because you don't see many screaming children at all. They hold the kids and put the groceries in the stroller. Yeah. And they really have a whole system about, this is for this will affect children. Even at the airport, you notice there that they have like wooden climbing frames. They've got so many things
for kids to do all the time.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the forest is great, right? Like you'd have a kindergarten where they're going around, they're building fires.
I know.
And they're playing in the dirt. And
I know.
My son came home from school the other day, and he's 3.5, and he came home covered in mud and dirt, and he had a big black line across his face here where he'd clearly been hit by something outside. And I thought, that's brilliant. That's how a little boy should come home from school. Yeah. He's clearly, I asked him, what happened to you? He said, well, I was chased by a tiger, and then the pirates came out, and then this, and then you couldn't get a straight answer out of him. But in his world, that's what happened.
And of course, when schools are pushing you, should have been pushed. They feel that they're wrong, and of course, for us to be right, every time you're right, you're making someone wrong, and so teachers have to understand that most children who think about ending their life is because somebody made them wrong. Maybe a teacher, maybe another kid, maybe the parent. And we forget that when you have these very autocratic teachers making people wrong,
when it's black and white,
it really affects their self-esteem, because then they buy into I'm not enough. I know it's so much better now, but we still have a lot of cultures where children are made wrong. And my dad used to always say, it's not important to be right, it's important to be kind. Because when you're kind, you are right. And so when you're in a battle between, shall I be right or shall I be kind? Always be kind, because when you're kind, you are right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great advice as well. When you mentioned, the success you've had from a scale point of view, you also mentioned some incredible stories that inspired you. What comes to mind? What would you say is a story you can tell us which, has really inspired you about your work, but from one individual?
Oh gosh, so many. Well, recently I was giving a talk somewhere and a gentleman in the audience put up his hand and said, hey, how can I make my kid good at everything? I said, are you? And he said, what? I said, good at everything. He said, no. I said, well, there's your answer. How can you ask your kid to be good at everything when you're not? I mean, surely that's very hypocritical. And actually, as it happened, he sent me this little child who was so upset because he couldn't be good at everything. And he said, I'm only good at IT. I said, but that's all you have to be good at. In life, you're supposed to be good at one thing. And if you're good at one thing, we're all here to find out what we love, be really good at it, and then go out into the world and make a career from it. And imagine if you were good at every single thing. Imagine a world where you could do everything. Well, first of all, you would do your own cooking, your own decorating, you do everything. You'd never employ anyone. You wouldn't have a gardener. Nobody would make your curtains. I mean, imagine how unfair. If you were good at every single subject, people wouldn't have a job. And he'd never thought about that. It was such a simple answer. Just be good at IT, because that's probably what you're going to do as an education. And my father was very interesting because in his school, the first thing he did was get rid of the school for special needs, the class for special needs. He said, I'm not having that. Because it wasn't even called that then. I think it was called something horrific. They used to call classes for children. I think they used to call them a dunce class at one time. Oh, no, it was much worse than that. I think later it became special needs. I think it was something like the dunce class. I don't know. You were these little white hats.
Oh, did they?
No, they didn't wear them, but that was the whole perception that we called it the class.
That's got stories got to come from somewhere, right? I mean, I imagine back in the day they wouldn't.
Yeah, oh yeah, back in the day you did have to wear that white hat. You wore that white hat and you sat in the corner with a deal. Yeah. But my father said, no, these children are not going to be doing accountancy. He had them mowing the lawn. It was a lovely school.
Oh, wow.
The state school, mowing the lawn, doing all the work, doing the IT. And I was in Cambridge many years ago, and there was this amazing restaurant. You can't get into it for love nor money. And I dropped by and I said, oh, have you got a table? They went, no, of course not. It's a 3-month waiting list. So what's your name? I said, are you related to Robert? My dad. He went, oh my God, your dad. My son went to his school because your dad had a reputation. And he couldn't do anything, but your dad just taught him IT, and that's what he did. And in fact, my dad said, oh, you're good at computers. You can fix all you don't have to go to any lessons. You can just do the computers. And he just did computers all the time. He said, he's so successful now. So I loved that story because my father would always look for, so making me feel emotional talking about that. He would always look, what did my dad say? He said, you have to imagine every child has something on their forehead saying, make me feel interesting, make me feel special. And he would always look, he said, there's no kids who aren't smart, they're just parents who don't believe it, so he could bring out the best. So I think when I was that little boy, I was thinking of my dad, and I said, but that's all you have to do. So I was telling him this story, and his dad said, oh, I think I need therapy now because you changed my kid so much. I mean, he was so stressed about what he couldn't do, rather than thinking, this is my gift. And of course, as an adult, it's the same thing. As an adult, you find your gift. It's very hard to be good at what you hate. Find out what you love. And when you found out what you love, then learn the art of perfecting what you love, and then monetize it. So you might say, I love writing. Well, maybe you could write a book. But it isn't just can I write. If you want to write a book, you have to learn to be a speaker. There's no way you'll get a book deal today if you can't go and talk about it. So maybe what you love is art, but you've also got to learn how to monetize that. What is selling? What do people like? And so it's the same thing all the way through. Find out what your gift is, because we all have a gift. Perfect your gift. Monetize your gift. When I had my baby, I came home and I couldn't. My husband had locked the house and gone off, so he didn't think I was leaving hospital early, and I couldn't get to my husband. My painter said I can break in, And he got in and said, you should be working for a locksmith. That's so amazing, because I had all these banner locks. And he managed to get in. He went, oh, yeah, I've been in jail. I can get into... And I knew that. I said, but, you should...
That's how you got out.
Yeah. He said, I could get into any house. And he got into my house in Chelsea really easily. And I remember saying to him, you should market that. That is actually a skill. Yeah. Why don't you perfect that art and go and work for Benham?
I often think a lot of life is this focus on less, not more.
Yeah.
It's learning to let go.
Oh.
And you look at the stuff we've been talking about, a lot of it is letting go of expectations that other people have put in our minds, or we've allowed them to, that we've got of ourselves, or we've got of our future, or the people around us, right? Yeah. And then you look at business and it's like, well, you can't do everything or you won't grow. You've got to learn to let go. Even if you are really good at admin and doing sales, or you're doing, customer service or turning delivery, if you don't learn to let go, you're not going to be able to double down on the thing you love the most.
Yeah, that's one of the exam questions when you're training to be a psychiatrist. What are the most important words in the world? And they are actually let go.
Really?
Not hold on, but let go. Yeah. Let go of resentment, let go of the past, let go of blame. Just let go, because the past is gone. It's never coming back. But letting go is very important. And also, when I'm talking to kids, I say, look, darling, your parents aren't perfect. You were raised by people who are not quite grown up yet. We don't understand that when we're born, our parents are growing up next to us. When I had my daughter, I wasn't mature at all. I mean, I was 30. But, you're not grown up. You're learning as you go. And that's so hard for your children. You don't have all the answers. But the answer is that we're all flawed. I'm flawed. Married to someone who's flawed, with flawed people around me. But then we have a lovely flawed relationship. It's called being flawsome. I love being flawsome. So I've got faults, and so have you. But let's have a great... But the worst is I'm perfect. And I need to have a perfect kid. I need that kid to be perfect academically and perfectly behaved. And then they go out and they go, look at my perfect kid. I was a perfect parent. But that's never going to happen.
And that creates a false expectation.
Yeah, because there is no perfection. We know what an Achilles heel is. Even if you appear to be perfect, you'll have a flaw. Everyone has a flaw. It's much better to say, oh, I'm not perfect. I'm flawed. I'm flawed, and so are you, and let's have a flawed relationship. Let's be flawsome. Because I found in my experience that if you ask me for my unhappiest clients and my loneliest, they'd always be the ones who try to be perfect. I mean, without hesitating, I can say that my unhappiest clients, without a shadow of it, are the ones who try to be perfect, but also the loneliest, because perfect is, here's the finishing line to perfect. You run towards it, and as you get to it, it moves and it moves and it moves. You can't even complete the race to be perfect. You can never get there. And even if you do, it's so transient. It's like my house is perfect for a minute. I had a perfect day. I made this perfect meal, but it doesn't stay perfect.
I think so. The happiest and most resilient people I've met have this ability to let things go and remove that tension. They go with the flow, basically.
Yeah, let it go.
It's just...
Let it go. That's why we love that song from Frozen so much. I had a lot of my times with my clients. I'll say, let it go. Who needs to hold on to that stuff anyway? Because you have to let go. The opposite of letting go is holding on. I remember seeing a picture years ago, and it just showed you like the sea, and then they said you can't find new horizons while clinging to the shore. And I thought, that's so true, isn't it? You can't move somewhere new while holding on to the past.
I think so many physical ailments that people experience come down to the fact they've got this tension because they haven't let go.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Joe Dispenza says 90%, but most doctors will tell you that 70% of people turning up at the hospital or the A&E or even their consulting room have real problems, not caused by diseased bodies, but caused by diseased thoughts. So it's not a diseased organ. It's diseased thinking. And of course, when you can't let go, you have all kinds of tension. You get tension headaches, you get constipated. You have a lot of issues. You often can't let go of excess weight because you're holding on. Yeah. So you need to let it all go.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And it's such a shame in the West that we've got this disconnect between the mind and the body. And certainly in Asia, when I've been training in martial arts out there, for instance, there's that connection is so much stronger. People are aware of it,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's getting better here now. I mean, look, here in Dubai, they're so now interested in, invested in mental health. And we'll talk about their mental health. You hear, I mean, that song by Lily Allen, you affected my mental health. You made me feel so bad. So we are now using that word, my mental health. My mental health, that's not good for my mental health. And I think that's a good thing, that we are seeing the mind-body connection. So in that song, Smile, she's talking about how someone dumped her and it affected her mental health. And I think that's great that we are finally not doing that. I'm okay, I'm great, I'm fine. We're saying, no, my mental health had a bit of battering then and I need to fix it.
Yeah, I think people are much more aware of their mental health. I think it's taking time for them to realize just the impact of that.
Yeah.
On their level of anxiety, and then create stomach issues and so on. And the actual practical application of issues with your mental health actually causing physical.
Well, because the stomach is the seat of all emotions.
Right.
Your little babies will say, "I've got a tummy ache" when they want to get out of bed and come downstairs. So the stomach is the seat of all emotions. People say, "I can't stomach that," or "That's sick to my stomach," or "My stomach was in knots," or "My stomach was doing somersaults." And then the gut, of course, is the second brain. So the gut, we talk about gut instinct, but the gut is totally linked to how you're feeling and thinking. And, one of my favorite expressions in the whole world is the feeling that cannot find its expression in tears will cause other organs to weep. Because it's really saying, if you can't let go and cry, then believe me, your body's going to do it for you. Your body's going to do it. And my other favorite expression is, if you don't fix your wounds, you bleed on the people that never cut you.
Yeah.
Which is so true. So we're all got to fix our wounds.
It makes me think that's kind of our responsibility as a parent.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if we don't fix, previous.
But also to help our kids, fix their wounds. I remember my little cousin one because, "Mummy, have you got your pyramid today?" And I said, "My period." And I said, "Just because I thought so, because you're very cranky." And I'd say to her, "Darling, Mummy is a bit cranky today because you had a period." And I'd always try and own it. Mummy wasn't very tolerant, and Mummy wasn't very patient. She goes, "Mummy, I think my teacher's having her pyramid because she's so mean." In fact, the teacher's going through the menopause, and she really got it. Yeah. She's so mean and cranky. And I told all the other children, it's not you, it's her. Because it's very important as a parent to say, today I wasn't very patient, and it wasn't you, it was me. The best thing is only, when you put your kid to bed, say, "I'm sorry, darling, I wasn't kind, I wasn't present today, I wasn't reasonable today." I mean, sometimes it isn't you, it's definitely them. But when it is you, at least own it, because they get that. They know what it's like to go to school and be mean. But when you can say that, then you allow them to say, "I wasn't kind today, I was a bit mean today. I was unkind to someone today." But it's so important to own it, and then, of course, you say, let it go.
I think that's one of the keys to building resilient kids, showing them that life's difficult, but and not just wallowing in your own self-pity, but showing them, I'm not perfect. This is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Maybe not the raw reality of what actually things you are, but the expression of that. And so they see you struggling with things, and then you're showing them how to overcome it.
Yeah.
Right? This is the language I'm using around that. This is the way I see the future. This is the techniques I'm using to cope. These are the coping mechanisms. And I think that's how you build resilient kids, not sheltering them.
Yeah.
But showing them a real life example that's aspiration.
Yeah. And the other thing I never realized as a parent is that you've got to make your kids independent as fast as you possibly can. My daughter had a very interdependent relationship, which was lovely. But I didn't realize that, you've got to get your kids to be independent, not too fast, but it's really good for them to go out into the world and realize that they can do everything.
It's difficult for parents, isn't it?
Yeah, to let go.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, especially for mums and sons, I think, it was an interesting quote I saw the other day, which was, it's watching a mum and a son is like watching the world's slowest breakup.
Oh, really? I didn't know that,
But for some reason, I don't know what it is, it's that particular relationship is very hard for mums to let go.
Yeah.
And
because it's always your little boy.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter's having a baby herself, but she'll always be my baby.
Yeah.
But I have to not call her that, because of course we do that. We say, "Oh, my," I see that with others, my baby, or my little girl, or my cute little boy, and you have to stop that. Somebody actually wrote to me ages ago and said, actually she lived here, and she said, "My son is 5, but he's got a real problem. He goes in his pants. He can't go to the toilet. It happens at school, happens at home. She said, I've tried everything. I've tried humiliating, I've tried making him wash them himself. I've tried, and nothing works. She said, it's so sad because he's my baby. And I said, do you call it? She goes, oh, yes. I said, tell me. She said, well, he's our baby. I call him baby. My husband calls him baby. His two. I said, well, that's what.
Yeah.
Of course.
It didn't take long. Didn't take long to figure that one out.
How else can he be a baby?
Yeah.
Doesn't he only your breast, or he can't control himself? I said, you need to go home and say, I'm really sorry I've called you a baby. Because you're a baby. You're a smart 5-year-old boy, and you're a 5-year-old boy who perfectly knows how to go to the toilet. You never have to be a baby again. She said it was amazing. Just that conversation about, I'm so sorry. I thought it was a lovely thing to call you my baby, my little baby boy, but...
You don't realise the impact that words have.
His two brothers, and of course it's that thing. You make a belief, you're the baby. The belief makes you're the baby, and now we got confirmation bias. How can I show up as a baby at 5? Well,
Now,
going in my pants is the only way I know to be a baby.
stick to the narrative.
Yeah, and
It's amazing how powerful language is. And it's, I often look at parenting, and I look at it like this balance of empowerment and protection, right? And it's typical that one parent has more of the energy of protection and one has more of the energy of empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? And it can be the male or the female. It's typically the mum who's got that protective energy, and the dad who tends to be trying to...
Yeah.
I give the example of teaching my kids to swim, and my wife would be like, right, keep the armbands on, and I'd be like, take them off, jump in, and I joke that my son would have armbands on until he was in his 40s, although I wasn't helping him. But it's one of those things where you work together as a team to create this balance between the two.
yeah,
And so a lot of our work has been with single parents, actually trying to help them with that empowering aspect. And language is so key. So in the book, the Warrior Method, our 4-step method is community, inspire, challenge, lead. That inspiration element is all down to the way in which we speak. When we speak to a child, we paint a picture of what they'll become. And so just as in your example there, right, you're painting a picture of a young baby, and that's what they're going to grow into. They'll stay that way. You want to correct the child's disruptive behavior. You paint a picture of a child who can do incredible things and has responsibility and is reliable, and they grow into that.
So even when they're climbing a tree, I mean, my daughter would go to the bar, I'd watch friends going, you're going to fall, and I'd say, look at your hairs, look at, keep looking at what you're doing, look at the tree, look at the branches, look at riding a bike, look ahead, and so rather than going, you're going to fall, you're going to break your leg, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to fall off in a minute, this is dangerous, you need to you can do this, take a deep breath and focus on what you're doing. So, years ago, my daughter was spilled something on me. I said, why did you do it? She goes, I did it, Mummy, because I'm silly. I said, no. Why did you spill the juice on the carpet? She said, because I'm bad. I said, no. And she said, why? She said, I was looking at the Flintstones. I went, that's right. You were looking at the Flintstones. So when you're carrying juice, you've got to always look at the juice, not the television. So, of course, it's frustrating they get juice on the carpet, but you just have to learn to help them. You weren't bad, but you did a bad thing because you didn't look. So you're not a bad person, but you did. And that's so important. So never say, you're a bad kid, you're a naughty kid, you're a horrible kid. You go, well, you did something unkind, you were mean to your sister, or you spilt something on the floor. Why did you do that? And when they went, because I'm so naughty, go, no, because you weren't paying attention. So you always got to label the behavior and not the child. They're not bad kids, but it is that they don't know if they never put the milk back in the fridge, it goes off. They don't know if they leave the fridge door open, everything defrosts. They don't know that. If you say, well, you are not bad, but, leaving the fridge door open all night, that was bad because now we've lost everything in it. So that was bad. But you're not a bad kid. Because as soon as you label them as bad, they have to turn into that. Yeah. So it takes a lot of patience. And, of course, you won't get it right all the time. There are moments when you'll be the bad person because you'll lose it, but at least you can come, or you always get it. You always get a chance to come back and apologize.
I guess that's a lesson parents should learn for themselves as well, right?
Yeah.
If they make a mistake, they're not bad.
No, exactly.
It's easy to
there's that first person. I made a mistake. Napoleon said a person who never made a mistake, well, they never made anything.
Yeah.
Because how can you learn if you don't make mistakes? That's how your kids learn. That's how you learn.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to make a mistake, but what you're not allowed to do is to beat yourself up because you made a mistake. Learn from your mistakes. We all make them every day, but learn from them. Be kind to yourself.
You've done a lot of work with bully And just before we came in here, you mentioned you read our book, Not a Victim, as well.
Yeah.
So you kind of see where they're coming from with that.
Sure.
And it's interesting for me that a lot of your work's been on the bully side of the relationship between a bully and a victim.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
Well, no kid ever wakes up and says, hey, my life is so great. Who can I go and diminish today? No adult wakes up and says, I'm having such a wonderful life. I think I'll go online and troll somebody. So we have to understand that hurt people, critical people always have the most criticism reserved for themselves. A critic is really reflecting out their dissatisfaction with themselves. And so I do a lot of work with the children who are bullies because they're usually bullied at home. When they're deeply frustrated, it's like, if this was a seesaw, here's you and here's the bully. But in the bully's mind, you're elevated and they're diminished. And when they feel like that, they only have two options: elevate themselves or diminish you, because the bully doesn't want that. They want that. They need to feel slightly superior. Then you have two options: diminish you, put you, or elevate them. I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm cooler, I'm richer. And if they can't do that, they'll diminish you. You're not good enough, you're an idiot. And so that happens a lot. We think it's equal, the bullies, and they want to be up there, but you have a choice to not let that in. We talk about not letting it in. And so I was teaching children how to cope with being bullied, certain things to say, like, oh, I'm not going to let that in. And there are 5 different things you can say to people who are bullying you. And they really work. And I was doing it recently with these 2 children, and the bully was saying this to the girl, and he said, oh, I've run out of energy. I can't keep doing this because she's blocking it at every turn. And she was much younger. She was like 7, he was 11. And he was saying, you're an idiot, you're stupid. And she was saying this, thanks for sharing that. I'm not going to let that in. You must be having a bad day. What are the 5? The first is, as an adult, if someone says, oh, you know, you were awful at that talk the other day, I go, well, thanks for sharing that. But I'm not going to let that in. Because bullies know straight away, I'm not going to let it in, so I've got to keep repeating it. Wasting my time. The bullies tend to move on to someone who will let it in. And then you can also say to them, are you trying to hurt my feelings? Usually they'll say yes. Or they go, no, I was just trying to explain to you that you were so awful at that speech. You go, well, thank you, but I'm not going to let that in. And at the end, you can say, you know, since we're sharing, this is really for adults, not children. Do you know that critical people have the most criticism reserved for themselves? But with a bully, you want to share.
Someone quite quickly.
Well, if you say to someone who's bullying in the office, you know, oh, thanks for sharing that. You know, luckily I'm not going to let that in. And then the second step is, so let's imagine someone says, I read that book, it was awful, I hated it. You go, oh, thanks for sharing that. But I'm actually not going to let that in. And the second step is to say, could you repeat that? Because most bullies know when you go, could you say that all again, that you're going to challenge them? They go, forget it. But if they go, oh yeah, so what I just said to you was, I hate this book. It's a hideous book. It's a stupid book. You go, okay. Are you telling me that to try and hurt my feelings? No. I was telling you that, so next time you write a book, you could do better, because most people actually do think they're giving you, and go, okay, well, since we're sharing here, you know, critical people actually have the most criticism of themselves. And sorry you feel like that, but I like it. You know, I look at my book reviews, and most of them look at, there's always going to be one going, I hate that book, I hate that person, I hate her voice. But I have a choice. Shall I go, oh my God, they hate my book? Or shall I go, well, what kind of person opens their computer and puts into saying, I hate that book and that person so much? Most people, if they don't like a book, they don't bother to go on and review it. They just go, I don't really like it. I mean, I've read books because I love this book, and I didn't really quite get it.
Yeah.
So it's the 5 techniques they're really about not letting it in, but also letting the bully know you're not letting it in. So when we're doing it with schools, it's somewhat easier, but it's the same 5 things. Thanks for sharing. I missed that. Could you repeat it more slowly? Oh, you're trying to hurt my feelings. If the answer is yes, well, that's not going to work, so I'm not going to let it in. And by the way, since we're sharing, you seem like a really unhappy person. In fact, I was working with a kid recently who was being very bullied, and I was teaching, and she said that when she went back to the bully, they said, yeah, my dad's dying of cancer, I wish it was my mum.
Wow.
And then she and this bully became great friends, because the bully is like, wow, you really got me. Yeah. You knew I was an unhappy person, and being bullied, they became the best of friends.
That's a fascinating example, right?
Yeah.
We've had a really amazing example as well. We had a 9-year-old who chronic bullying, 2 years they were going through bullying, and I took them through our non-victim process, 6 steps. It's funny when I take them through this, they tend to, the first 2 steps is enough.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, because it's, perception is the first one, and presentation is the second one, where they actually look at their body language around that as well. But perception is understanding why bullying occurs, and it's one of the hardest things actually for parents to swallow, because parents then feed the narrative that the bully's a bad person.
Yeah.
That's a bad family.
Yeah.
They actually just raise the bully and the intimidation of the bully when they do that, and they actually separate the understanding of that. And so one of the things that we always do is we teach children through stories. So we'll tell a child an example of it, just like you have, right? Imagine a child out there who has a really bad time at home. Their big brother bullies them every day. They're not a bad person, but they feel so angry. They go to school and they let it out.
Yeah, of course.
You feel sorry for them, right? And so that we develop this sense of empathy. So I did this with a 9-year-old, and they understood. It was like something clicked. And they went to school. The bully did what they normally did, tried to target them, and they looked at them and just kind of said, "What's wrong? Why are you so angry? Why are you so upset every day? All the time?" And they basically broke down.
Yeah.
And this 9-year-old, the mum 2 weeks later phoned me out crying. Was like, "I don't know what you've done," but she told me what happened at school. She said they literally mentored their bully through running.
Yeah, of course, because
Just incredible.
schools are so busy helping bullied children, which is very important, but you also got to help the kids who are bullies because they often don't know what they're doing. They're very unhappy. A lot of people will say later on, I met this bully, and they went, "Oh, it was just a joke. You had such nice clothes. You had a nice, so I hated you." But I didn't even realize the damage I'd done. So we don't really realize the impact bullying has on children, then become adults who are scared of bullying. And of course, when I was a kid, if you got bullied, that was between 9 and 3:30. Then you went home. It didn't happen. You could go to, but now with a computer and a phone, there's no escape because they get bullied online. They get really targeted online.
Bully can be anonymous.
Sorry?
The bully can be anonymous.
Yeah, and they're saying,
screen.
of course, there's a lot of screen bullying going on. And so, of course, we need that 2-step, arm the bully to fight back. As you say, you're an unhappy person. Wow, you must be so unhappy to be so critical. You must really dislike yourself because this criticism is really how you feel about you. They really understand that's true. But we also need to really help bullies because, of course, they don't feel enough. My Not Enough program, I had a school in Spain doing it. One of the teachers, I took all the bullied kids and all the kids who were doing the bullying so one of the boys just burst into tears about it. "Why am I crying?" So because you don't believe it. You don't think you're enough. And that's why you're diminishing everyone else because you're not enough. But if you were enough, you wouldn't need to do that because you'd already feel like that. And so that seesaw analogy of, but nobody can diminish you unless you let them. We think that we can let bullies treat us really badly, but we always have that ability to come back and say, "Oh, you're an unhappy person."
The power of empathy is just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
If parents could understand that, and they realize what a secret weapon that is to overcoming bullying, right? It's like it's not strength against strength. It's understanding.
And of course, all anger, behind all anger is hurt. There's always a hurt behind anger. And the trick is find the hurt, acknowledge the hurt, deal with that hurt, because angry kids are hurt kids. I've had hundreds of really angry kids in my office, angry, aggressive, but they're all hurt. Yeah. You say to them, "Oh, you're a hurt kid." They go, "No." But if you actually stay with it, go, "Tell me what hurt you." They go, "I've never seen my dad. I don't have a dad." Yeah. I would tell the kids that I've never had, my dad doesn't care about me. No one cares about us. Well, that's not really true, is it? Because first of all, I care about you. You care about you, and the person who sent you must care about you. So we've already got 3 people. But actually, for a kid, they just need one person. For me, it was my grandmother. And I think if we can all think, can I be that one person who believed in another kid? I mean, you're doing it for hundreds of thousands, but often it's a teacher, a grandparent, a therapist, a neighbor. You can always be that. You can be that one person that believed in it. That's all you ever need, one person. And we can all be that one person, which is an amazing thing.
Changes the narrative in your mind of
In fact, in the Talmud and indeed in the Quran, it says when you change one person's life, it's the same as changing the life of the whole world.
Well,
And we all have the power to change one person's life. But if you're that one person, that's what teachers often do. They believe in you, or grandparents, or sometimes it's a friend who sees something in you that you can't see in yourself.
it's a powerful concept. I think that's true legacy.
Yeah.
The things you not things you leave behind, but the things you leave people with. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I love working with kids.
Yeah.
You're planting seeds that just grow.
Oh, of course. And then when you fix that one child, they then don't go on to have abusive relationships, being abusive parents. So really, you're affecting entire generations.
Yeah. This is what we explain to our instructors, and that's the true legacy of what we do. It's not what the kids do in the dojo. It's what they do when they leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Sure.
Marissa, tell me a little bit before we wrap up. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Dubai right now, so any parents from Dubai can.
So we created this 5-day challenge, which is really, we all have a critic that says you can't, but I created a program for adults where they had this cheerleader who would believe in them, and they said, oh, my kid is loving this. We actually physically created this cheerleader who children have, and they kind of install it in themselves, and it believes in them. So I found with a lot of my clients, they'll say things like, no one ever told me I mattered. My dad never praised me. My mum never told me I was smart. No one told me I was interesting. And I call it the missing words, the words we never heard. So with adults, we'd have this cheerleader who'd specifically give them these missing words, because, of course, the mind doesn't care. If you've always wanted to hear the words, I'm smart, it doesn't matter if the mind doesn't know or care who's saying it. It lets it in. It's like putting lotion on skin. It goes in. And so often we're giving someone, can you tell me I matter? Can you tell me I'm okay? It's like, don't outsource that. You tell yourself you matter. You tell yourself you're okay. It's really teaching children from the age of 5 that they have the power to give themselves the words, I'm smart, I can do this, I've got this, I've done my best. I don't need to be good at this because I'm good at that. Or today was a good day. Today was not such a good day. As humans, we get the chance to change twice every single day. Change a thought, it changes an action. And so the program with children is to give them phenomenal self-belief. And we do some fun things. Like when I was teaching some schools I put a huge triangle on the floor in masking tape, and each point had a flip chart. And the child would come in and they'd write something they didn't feel happy with, like, I'm no good at maths, or I don't know how to make friends. And then that was the thought. They had to run to the second point, which was the feeling. How do you feel when you think that thought? And they go, well, I feel sad, or I feel angry, I feel defeated, I feel frustrated. Lots of feelings, none of them good, by the way. And finally, they had to run to the behavior. How do you behave when you think that thought and feel the feeling? Well, one kid said, well, I act out. I get really angry. And the little girl goes, I just cry. So let's keep running thought, feeling, behavior. And then eventually, let's flip the thought. I'm a smart kid, really good at maths, and I make friends easily everywhere I go. Now let's run to the feeling. Well, I feel good. I feel brave. I feel confident. Now let's run to the behavior. And the kid with the math said, I'm so smart. I asked the teacher for help. I asked her to help me. I put my hand up in class and I don't understand that because I'm smart, not because I'm stupid, because I'm smart. So they got it very quickly.
Yeah.
Thought comes first. It's like a ladder: thought, feeling, behavior. And don't work on the behavior or the feeling, work on the thought. And so this whole process is going into schools and empowering children to always go back to the thought and change it. And so it's been a 5-day challenge, but now we're making it a whole year challenge so that every year has it all the way through school, and it adapts, of course, to what that particular year or that particular child is going through. But, as a therapist, I understood very quickly that my job is to give every client I see freedom and empowerment. But in children, it's the same. They want freedom from their fears and issues and empowerment. They want to be able to say, I can, not I can't, but I'm enough, not I'm not enough. They want to have phenomenal self-belief because it stands them in such good stead.
Sounds like a brilliant program.
Yeah,
I love the way that you're making it so practical for kids to...
It must be practical, yeah. It's got to be really simple. We do a lot of fun things. Like we have this big diamond, and what we ask children to do is a huge diamond I got on eBay. It's probably bigger than that. And they stick stickers all over it going, I'm not smart, I'm not good, I'm not cool. And then when they've covered it, they realize that they've covered up their brilliance with thoughts.
So it's a visual representation.
And then they start to take them off one by one, and as they take them off, they realize that I've covered up my brilliance. And the other thing we do a lot is I literally have the Aladdin's lamp. Say, come up, here, pretend this is the Aladdin's lamp. Rub the lamp and make a wish, and they go, I wish I wouldn't fail at maths. I wish I wouldn't mess up. I wish that girl that sort of doesn't like me wouldn't be horrible. And so you see, you're wishing for the wrong thing. The genie, this is the genie your wishes. It must make your wish true. Don't wish not to fail at maths. The genie goes, how can you not fail at maths? I know, you can have a tummy ache and not go to school. Now you can't fail at maths. But if you say to me, I wish to be brilliant at maths, to have a really great mind at maths, to be able to add up and subtract in my head, that's my wish. The genie can make it true. I wish to not, I wish to not get shouted at. Well, that's the better thing is I wish to be so good at expressing myself that people understand what I'm saying. So it's so interesting that we're always making the wrong wishes. I wish I wouldn't mess that up. I wish I wouldn't get embarrassed. I wish I wouldn't go bright red. I wish I wouldn't cry at that. But when you're making a wish, and your mind's job is going to make the wish come true, even with the worst wishes. So I was saying, I wish I wouldn't spill that water. I'm probably going to do it now. I wish I wouldn't fluff my words, but wish for what you want. So they come up and rub them and go, hey, Jeannie, I wish to be really amazing at math, to be really good at English, to when I take that exam, for the exam to see I know what I'm doing. And so when you make a different wish, the mind's job is to make your thoughts real. But we're often thinking the wrong thoughts. But even doing the magic lamp with children allows them to go, okay, just reframe what I'm asking for. It's like saying, I don't want to stay awake all night. Oh my God, I wish I could get a night's sleep. I'm always good. Rather than saying, I wish to close my eyes and just sleep comes to me. So we're always wondering why the things we fear come upon us because we're wishing for the wrong thing or focusing on the wrong thing. You know, your mind can't go into two lanes. You can't be amazing at something while worrying about it. You got to learn, because the mind can't hold conflicting thoughts, and it certainly can't hold conflicting beliefs. But so it's like saying, I want to write a book. What if everybody hates it? I want to give a talk. What if I mess it up? I want love. What if that person dumps me and then it's going to ruin my life? You can't go, I want love, but they're going to leave me and then I'll be messed up. It's like, I'm going to find someone who loves me, I love them, or we're going to be together forever. So we all have to learn to make better wishes, but something as simple as a genie's lamp for children, it's such a visual. They literally rub it and realize, oh, I was wishing for the wrong, I wish my brother wouldn't shout at me. I'm wishing that me and my brother get on so well. I understand him, he understands me, we're great buddies. So make a wish that the mind can make real that you like, not one it can make real isn't what you ever wanted in the first place.
Wishing for the right thing.
Yeah, it's like wishing for attention. You can now have a nervous twitch. That's not what you wanted at all.
No.
So when you wish for attention, what do you want attention for? For being smart, for being magnetic, for being kind, for being lovable. Or for being really difficult and abrasive and always kicking off.
Brilliant advice. Marissa, amazing chat. Really, really enjoyed our discussion today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed today's Warrior Academy podcast episode. We're going to keep creating these episodes because I know that so many parents find them useful or get insights or get ideas about how to develop their child's character. But it all comes down to the 3 C's: confidence, conduct, and concentration. So if you want to get a deep insight into the levels of confidence your child has, the level of concentration they have, or the level of conduct they have, so that you can actually put a score next to it, and then work towards increasing those scores like we do in the Warrior Academy, then I'd love to invite you to fill in the breakthrough area assessment. It takes about 5 minutes of your time, and you will get a personalized PDF report on your child's 3 Cs. To access the breakthrough area assessment and find out your child's 3 Cs score, all you need to do is go to www.breakthrougharea.com.